In today's lesson, we will be going over the cards themselves and what they do specifically.
Take it away, Complex.
In today's lesson, we will be going over the cards themselves and what they do specifically. I think it should be proper to introduce myself. So I've been playing this game pretty much since the beginning, in the first month, I believe. And if you can show the video, I pretty much have every single servant in the game. I think I'm only missing 2. I've leveled / played pretty much with every servant in the game, even the ones I've not had before. So I've got quite a lot of experience just playing the game. And then I've spent quite a lot of time obviously in the game to do the things I've done.
This right here is a video we took prior of his generalized roster, so you guys can get a feel for the depth of the roster. I'm going to continue letting this stream through his roster, giving it a pause every little bit so you guys can take a look. And you can, what is that? Gawk at the gloriness of pretty much completion.
Well, it's not as complete as I want it to be, but give me a few more lottos and a bit of time and I'll get there. It's a slow process.
Complex Massiah, do you have like a top 3 favorite servants that you use from your roster right now?
Well, I have the luxury of choice, so it depends exactly what I'm doing, but I am very much a firm believer of when in doubt, Kiara, because Kiara solves quite a lot of the problems in this game, and I really do enjoy her kit. But I generally stick to using mainly art-based comps because it's just fun to spam Noble Phantasms.
Same for me over here.
Yeah, so it's generally 2 caster supports plus another person who's generally just going to do all the damage. Yes, I do have power. It depends. In fact, yeah, I have both powers. Yeah, well, she didn't turn up. I mean, I've got like an MP4 Tamino Lancer, and if she ain't coming up, then there's not much I can really do for it. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, I have Paracelsus. Yeah, he's like actually capped and skilled and stuff.
Now, for this section of Complex Massiah's roster, we're looking at the servants that have all of their skills. Is that just Noble Phantasms? All the Noble Phantasms completely maxed out. So as you can see, there is a quite large variety here. Got 2 St. Georges in there?
Yeah. I have one St. George who is specifically designed to die, and then another one that's actually designed not to die. It's called Esports, and it's basically the idea of an esports servant is that you have it around to throw all of its skills off and then die. So when it dies, you can actually bring in a proper servant to replace it, and you still get all the benefits of the skills of the person you've just killed.
And for right here, what you see on screen, this is the maxed out skills.
I would also like to point out this is not everybody I've got maxed out. It's just far too big to show in a single screenshot. But this is a rough idea of what kind of things I do have maxed out.
Alright, then the next bit we're going to see here. Now this is called the Web Pro. Apparently this is a resource you can use to see what resources you have spent total into your account. So this is from Complex Massiah's resources. So you can see here that he has spent nearly 3,000 Void Dust hero tokens and what, 2,600 almost bones there?
Yeah.
Evil bones.
Another thing to look at is the 9 times the QP cap I've spent in QP.
Complex Massiah, do you?
can't-
Never mind.
I can't give you a specific link to my web crow because it's customized for each person that plays it.
And
But you can use the web crow as a basic kind of database and management resource. I do recommend spending the time and actually going through your account to do this. It really, really does help because it can tell you what you also need as well as what you already have spent.
And then, as you can see, 9.6 billion QP. Ain't no small task there. And here's the rest of that. There we go. And when I look at here, when I'm seeing this, is I'm seeing, like you guys talk about, oh man, you're going to need a ton of those resources. Well, to achieve Complex Massiah's roster, he did use 1,000 pages, almost 1,000 feathers. And like you guys also said, you know, them horseshoes, people weren't so excited about the horseshoes in the recent event. They're like, yeah, we'll kind of skip on those. Well, you need about half as many of those as you needed on the pages, so that kind of makes sense. And again, that's to achieve his roster.
But bearing in mind, I also do have stockpiles on top of this as well. For example, I'm still sitting on like nearly 2,000 horseshoes.
All right.
So what you see here is what I've used, not what I've still got on top of this.
So this is a little bit about Complex Massiah's history and what you've seen about the roster. So it's kind of like the credentials. Now, what we're going to move into is our first actual segment of our lesson here. And this is going to be about how is the deck built. So when you're playing the game, you obviously all know you pick the 3 characters. They each have the 5 cards. Take it away, Complex.
So each servant in the game has a unique deck consisting of 5 cards. What happens is when you start the battle simulator, it will add all 3 of those decks together, shuffles them, and draws 5 cards from it. What those cards are mainly debated on their classes. However, certain servants will have unique decks specific to them. For example, Akita actually has 2 quicks instead of 2 arts, and she still has the 2 busters. Generally speaking, when you are looking at a character's deck, you will be looking to see if you can make a complete Brave Chain of the same card with using their Noble Phantasm. If they have 3 of the same card, that's also very, very good, but you're mainly looking to try and basically get a complete Brave Chain of 1 card type, and we'll get into that a little bit later on in this.
Alright, so that covers how the deck is built and what the deck is built of. But yeah, let's go ahead.
Well, the decks generally, the deck is built of quick cards, art cards, and busters. And up and above on the top table, you can see what they do in the position that you play them when you click on them. So as you can see, quick cards are the weakest in terms of actual damage with an 80%. This is why you've heard me say before that you should never put a quick cards first, because you will lose 20% damage. You're better putting any other card on. But there might be a few occasions where that's different. But generally speaking, you should, I wouldn't say avoid using quick cards, because quick cards are very well rounded. They do everything, and they are the only card to do everything.
And by do everything, you mean drops crit stars, builds Noble Phantasm, and deals baseline damages.
Yes.
Because as we can see here, arts cards don't drop any stars naturally, and buster cards don't build MP naturally at all.
And as you can see, it's only when they are in what is described as an anchor card, which is the 3rd position, they do over 100% of their damage. So generally speaking, you generally prefer to put them, personally I like to put them in the 2nd thingy, and keep the anchor cards for the arts and the busters to do either the 600% MP gain or the 210% buster damage.
And let's see here. Do we have a graphic for what a buster chain does and a brave chain and all that? Is that in the next?
I believe that's in the next set, yes.
Is that this right here?
Yeah.
No, this is what happens when you put the first card in the series.
I think it's the second part of that, I believe that.
All right. Let's see
Yeah,
here.
I think it might be the second part. Either way, we'll move on to this topic. So what happens is that when you select the first card, it inherits properties throughout the entire chain. And here are the actual numbers for it, which aren't actually in the game. So if you put a quick card first, you have a 20% increased star generation rate. I'm not going to go into exactly specifically what that means. That's going to be in another lesson where I will really break down exactly what star generation is, how it works, and what's so important about it.
And this 20% will go into play on all future cards, even if it's a brave chain, it'll affect that extra card as well, correct?
Yes, yes it will. And the extra cards are very, very important because they are basically better than pretty much every other card in the game. There are a few exceptions to this. However, generally speaking, the extra card is the strongest card that your servant will have when you are face carding.
All right.
I will go into the numbers a little bit afterwards, but arts cards generate 100% more NP. So it does mean that buster cards with an arts beginning will generate 100% MP rate rather than generating the 0. And it also means that the arts cards that obviously follow this will gain 100% buff towards it. So it will mean, if we look at the other table, that eventually if you have an anchored arts card, you will have a 700% generation on the last card. And that can, with the right kind of setups, basically mean you'll get 100% MP for free. There are servants who genuinely rely on this to actually gain their NPs. A good example of this would be Massiah, who generally needs to use her first skill and make her arts inherent chain to basically charge her MP up. It's how it's designed to be done through her kit.
Now down here under the arts section on that second slide towards the bottom, it says add an additional 100% to the card's no phantasm gain modifier. And it makes it very clear there when it says it takes buster from 0% to 100%. Well, 100 times 0 is still 0, but I believe I've seen a like a little bit of a gain, like a 1% gain on buster cards.
What that means is that MP generation is kind of like a stat on a card, and you need that stat to be higher than 0 for you actually to start generating the NP. What really affects that are the actual hits on the cards themselves. So if you've only got 100% MP generation and you hit once or twice, like most buster cards do, you won't really see much MP generation from it, and that's why you've only gained 1 or 2% from it.
All right. And I've seen something similar to arts cards dropping like a single crit star.
Yes.
Alrighty then.
I will be going into these mechanics in further lessons into much more detail than I will right now.
Alright.
But what's really, really important is the busters 50% because it's a flat 50% increase. So it's not so much, because how the game calculates the damage is it will calculate the entire damage of that one card and then basically divide that amongst the number of hits on the card. But that 50% flat is not per hit, but rather on the total damage on top of it.
So right there, if you lead off with a buster card, and then your second card is, say, a quick card, that quick card will not deal 50% more than its 96% base. It'll do 96 plus 50%. So
146%.
Yes, so is that how that plays out?
Yes, basically. It will modify that number to give you more damage, and everybody likes more damage.
So if you start with a buster card and end with a buster card, saying it's not a buster chain, instead of 210%, it'll be 260%. It's not going to do 315%, correct?
That is very, very true.
Okay, well there we go. We understand that.
I haven't put this into a slide, but there is also another mechanic inside the game, and that is if you put 3 of the same card type in, they do specific things.
The chains, yes.
Yes, the actual chains themselves. They give you 10%. Well, we'll start off with the easy stuff. Busters gives you a 20% flat attack for each servant in that's affected by that card. So they will gain a 20% to their attack stat, which is then calculated into the damage formula, and they will also gain the 50% flat buster damage on top of that as well.
So what it's going to do is it's going to do a multiplication of a bonus 20% first, and then add a 50 flat on top of that.
We'll go way more detail in the next lesson if we actually go into the actual damage itself. But basically, all you really need to know is that buster chains do a lot of damage.
And then the crit star one is pretty simple for when you do a quick chain, right?
Yes, it gives you 10. It'll give you just 10 stars. I will then obviously in another lesson explain to you exactly how crits work and how those stars are divided and absorptions and all of the stuff that goes into that.
Yes, there's a lot to do with the crits.
Very complicated, yes.
So there's going to be a whole lesson just on the crits.
Yes, there is an entire lesson just on crits.
So there's a drop rate, an absorption rate, a gather rate. Those are all 3 different things.
Yeah. Yes. And there's also a crit star rate, which is another thing as well.
And then the arts chain is pretty simple and straightforward as well. It's a flat 20% gain for everyone that participates. And
if you get particularly lucky and you can manage to make an entire chain using only 1 servant, the actual extra card, who generally does a 250% damage mod on it, which is stronger than an anchor buster card, and it also inherits the first part of the actual chain itself. It will also go from 250 to 350%. So it's 200% rather to 350%. So you basically get a free anchor bust card every time you make a brave chain with a single person, and if it's the same card, you get a really strong extra card.
All right, and are we going to go over the statistics of the baseline of an extra card at this moment, or is that for another day?
No, those are the statistics for it. The extra cards generally chain from 7 to 7. Each one of them will have different hit counts, which you can look generally through the resource that has been provided. You can click on the servant, and it will show you in their profile how many hits are in each card.
All right.
I will go into a different lesson. I will explain to you. In fact, it will actually take multiple lessons to do this. I will explain to you exactly why hit counts on cards are such a big deal.
All right, so the next question we have to work through is the reshuffling. How does it work?
Okay, so once you have this deck built of 15 cards and you have gone all the way to the end of it, it will then reshuffle and it will re-randomize those cards.
So after turn 3?
So from turn 4, you will have basically a new set of cards that are made of the same deck again. So it's every 3 turns, it will shuffle it after you've finished through the phase cards you've got. However, there are other ways of manipulating the deck so that you gain, if you just want to shuffle the deck because you've either got all the cards you wanted, or you just want to try and get the cards you want. The easiest way of doing this is to swap servants, and you can do this the most common way, which is to either use a rash or you use the plug suit.
So using a rash means, have him use his noble phantasm and kill him off.
Yes, basically.
And then the plug suit gives you the ability to swap, and some other servants have the ability to swap too through special skills, I think, but it's a very finite list.
I can only think of a very few. The only one that really comes to mind doing that is actually the new servant in Japan through the costume event that literally just happened. It's very rare to do it through other servants, but it is possible to do it through other servants.
And let's say you're on turn 2, and that's where you swap out a character. what's going to happen there is the other two servants that are still in play, their deck will remain the same. So what was used up on turn 1 and what is in turn 2 will be unaffected, and what will show up for them in turn 3 will be unaffected. But
no, that's not true.
Okay.
At turn 3, it will reshuffle all of the decks back together again, and then it will give you a brand new set of hands, and then you have to count.
That's the end of turn 3, though, correct?
Yeah, that's at the end of turn 2, at the beginning of turn 3.
Okay.
And so then you will have to then go through the normal cycle at turn 5, and then turn 8, and then etc. etc.
And what conditions is this card counting tactic most useful? Because obviously, let's see here on screen we have Arturia Pendragon, Pendragon Altar, and Lily. So let's say you had all 3 of those on the team.
So card counting is really, really important for many different reasons. It allows you in harder content to set up basically burst phases where you will know you will have ideal phase cards. For example, if you've got an Arturia, you know you're going to have your 2 Buster cards coming up in the next turn. So you can buff in the previous turn, and then when the next turn arrives, you can do a full Brave Chain with Arturia and get all of the... You can maximize your damage on a single target or multiple targets. It's also important in other ways to understand exactly where you are in the actual combat itself, so you can then roughly know how far you're going to be in your resets when an actual cooldown off a skill is coming down. So you can go, okay, it's going to be coming on turn 6, so that means I will have a brand new set of deck cards to do it. So I can then figure out exactly when I will then need to use this skill again in the game. It also means that you can do it, if we keep using turn 6 as an example, you can also go, okay, it's coming up in turn 6. I will then need to use it on turn 6 because I have the cards that I'm needed to burst again. So I can immediately then go into another burst when the cooldowns are actually off the skill.
Makes sense to me.
And how you card count, because I should probably point this out, is that you keep track of the cards that you've seen on as the turns go by, and you subtract them from the decks that you know that those servants have.
So if on turn 1 I get 3 of Arturia's cards, and then none show up on turn 2, well, we know in turn 3, 2 left are definitely going to be there.
Let's take Arturia for an example. Let's say she uses, you get on one turn, you get a quick card, a buster card, and an arts. Then you know that the only 2 cards that can come up in the next 3 turns is an arts and a buster. And that will then allow you to either go, okay, I can't use Arturia for anything at the moment, or I can go, okay, I need to wait until a buster card comes up because I haven't used her mana burst skill, and I can get the extra 50% buster damage on that thingy if I anchor it correctly, and I might be able to kill the mob I'm killing.
Sounds accurate to me.
Card counting sounds really, really complicated, but it's actually not that hard.
Yeah, we're not in a casino here with a 52 deck. We got 15 card decks here.
I've already covered that one, Avalon, but yes, death is also another way of actually resetting the card, the deck itself, and it very much works in the mechanics as swapping in. So if a person dies, even if you kill them, which is possible to do, you can kill them whilst you still have command in them. It will swap those cards out. No, I'm talking about before you actually declare attacks. There are certain skills in this game, if you use them that cost HP, they will kill your servant. For example, Tesla has a skill for that. So it will then work basically in the same way that switching works. So yeah, Avalon is completely correct. Death is a way of reshuffling the deck.
Crit Cards is going to get its own lesson. Noble Phantasms is going to get its own lesson. We're going to go over buffs, the way they interact, because there's basically, 3 different types of main buffs, I believe.
4.
4.
Yes. We'll go into. I'm going to basically try and break down every single thing I know about this game. I'm going to try and teach you guys how the Noble Phantasm mechanics work, how the damage formula can be used so you can get the most amount of damage out of it. I'm going to try and teach you how crit mechanics work and how you can manipulate it and guarantee crits with certain cards. I will also teach you how to maintain your account so that you can maximize when you really want a servant. You can get the most out of them before you actually have that servant. I will teach you pretty much everything I know.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions right now, I would like to thank you, Complex Massiah, for working with me and putting this together and spending your time and sharing your expertise.
The next couple lessons is like the nice, meaty, juicy center. But thank you for having me, Draven, and I really appreciate you letting me use your platform to teach these lessons.
Well, here at the Dravenverse, we try to be a community-based stream.